Monday, September 27th, and it is another episode of Let There Be Talk. Welcome to the show, brought to you by my podcast network, cactusradionetwork.com. Home for all of my podcasts. At Home with Byron Katie, Dark Fonzie, The Grail, and of course, Let There Be Talk. Tune in every day for new episodes of all the shows at cactusradionetwork.com. Let's get into the episode number 611 today. Fantastic guest. It is a music mogul. I've always been fascinated by the A&R world of the record company business, the behind-the-scenes stuff, and no better man to talk to about all of this than the CEO himself of Lava Records, Mr. Jason Flom. If you're wondering who Jason Flom is, I'm going to give you a little rundown right now, a scorecard, so to speak here. In the 70s, late 70s, he started as a guy going around New York City hanging up posters for Atlantic Records of the newest releases, that kind of stuff, tape gun and a staple gun and posters, and hey, get Highway to Hell out on Tuesday. Worked his way up as an A&R man and just completely dominated the world with some of the greatest signings ever. I'm going to give you a rundown of who this man has either discovered or signed or worked with. Tori Amos, Lorde, Greta Van Fleet, Katy Perry, Skid Row, Zebra, Kid Rock, Stone Temple Pilots, Twisted Sister. It goes on and on and on. This man loves rock and roll, and he is not your usual record company, what you think you have in your mind of a suit. You know, the suits are against us. There's something about Jason Flom to me that just feels fantastic, and he would be a record company guy that I would love to work with if I was out grinding it in the rock and roll world still. Jason, very interesting, at the end of this episode, makes an announcement that he is always looking for new rock bands, and he wants to turn Lava into just a pure rock and roll record company. And he leaves his info at the end, but I will tell you, you can DM him at It's Jason Flom on Instagram if you think you've got what it takes. If you are a rock band out there in the world and you're like, no one's listening, how do we get a record deal? How do we get out there? He's ready to hear it. But I will tell you this. Ask yourself honestly if you think you got it, you're ready to go. You don't want to send in something too soon. That's always the wrong thing. You know, like, well, we're great, and you send it in, and they go, ooh, no, and then later you're like, we weren't ready. But if you kick ass, and I haven't heard of you, or Jason hasn't heard of you, or you're just out there rocking, start knocking. It's Jason Flom. This man wants to, get more rock and roll in the world, which is a fantastic idea. Anyway, I'm going to bring him up in a minute. I want to get into a couple things. There are new tour dates up on my website, deandelray.com. Get yourself some tickets right now. I'm coming to Red Rocks this Saturday. That's sold out. I'll be there with Burr. But if you are going, go early. Do not miss me. I am featuring for Mr. Bill Burr. I will be in Los Gatos October 9th, October 22nd, and 23rd. I'm at Teehees in Des Moines, Iowa. I'll be spending my Halloween week in Vegas at the Comedy Cellar. And then I'm doing a little mini run back up to the Northwest at Portland, Oregon, and Bend, Oregon, with my man Shaylin McDonough opening. So those are some of the tour dates. A lot of fun there. DeanDelRay.com, and you can also get brand new merch We've restocked the merch. So all of that is at the website, deandelray.com. And I want to give a big shout out to all of my fantastic Patreoners. I will be dropping a bonus episode today, and I will be doing a Zoom Fest today. Patreon.com/DeanDelRay. 111 Let There Be Talk bonus episodes available. Oh, wait a minute. Before we get into the episode, I just want to say thank you to Mark Maron and thank you to everybody that came out to the Seattle shows and the Portland shows. Jerry Cantrell was there. It was great to see him. Ship John and the crew were there. And most of all, I just had the most incredible time with Mark driving around the Pacific Northwest, telling stories, dropped a new Dark Fonzie. But the most important thing is, I have an incredible friend, and it is his birthday today. He is 58 years old. Mr. Mark Maron, I love you. Happy birthday. Just an incredible friend. 10 years ago, you came into my life, and it's completely changed for the better in a time where most people are just out with their kids or their grandkids or whatever they're doing. You and I just, boom, we meet up. And we hang, we have great laughs. We argue sometimes over ELO. And I just love you, man. Candles are definitely lit for you, buddy. Looking forward to more laughs and smiles with you, man. Love you. Okay, here it is. Mr. Jason Flom. All right. Here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. A fantastic guest, a new friend of mine, but I feel like we're going to be friends for a long time, my man. Mr. Jason Flom, how are you, buddy?
Man, if I was any happier, they'd have to sell tickets. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a good day to be alive.
Each day I wake up, I go, I made it through the night.
How about it? Not everybody did. So, especially these days. So anyway, yeah, we got some gratitude in our attitude here on Let There Be Talk, right? So let's go.
It's funny because we had lunch last week in New York and you're definitely one of those guys that I felt like, I was like, oh, I'm going to be friends with this guy forever. It's just there's a vibe thing there. And there's something that you have that I love in people where it's just like, you don't know what it is, but you just bond. You go, this is it. Another friend in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, this is connection. Look, we have we're both rockers through and through, and we're not unashamed, unabashed, and we were raised on the greatest rock and roll ever. And here we are on the day Charlie Watts passed away. So it's kind of prophetic, but. The fact is that, it was we had an amazing vegan lunch in New York, Red Bamboo, everybody, that place. If you haven't checked it out, go. It's so good. Oh my God. I had the vegan steak hero, whatever the hell it's called, but totally vegan. I mean, amazing. Yeah. So And
then, I had the chicken parm. And,
that shit was no joke.
Let's get a little bit into it, man, because I grew up in that era of the 80s of those A&R guys of like Kalogner and Zutot and those kind of guys that you heard of, the Black Card and, taking the bands out for $100,000 lunches and cocaine. It was just a crazy world of A&R. But really, you started Atlantic as a young kid in the 70s doing A&R. How do you get into it? And what is that world of A&R? Because me being in a band for years and having guys like Kevin Williamson come around, you're like, oh shit, an A&R guy's here. We all knew him. There's Rick Rubin. There's Zutot. We knew who they were, and it was that thing where if someone was in a room, you're like, uh-oh, somebody's got a buzz, So what was your introduction to it? And also, why didn't you play music?
Well, I did. I failed at being a rock star. So that's how I got into the music business. The one time we actually had an audition with some A&R guy from some major label. Our drummer, we never could keep a drummer. Our drummers were always switching out. And this particular drummer, I forgot his name. That day, I think he did a bunch of bad dope or something and threw his drums down the stairs. So we didn't, you know, we weren't really an acoustic act. So that didn't work out. We wouldn't have gotten a deal anyway because we weren't that good. But then the first Van Halen record came out. The first time I heard it, I was on mushrooms, and I heard Eruption, and I was like, oh no, I think it was Running with the Devil, the first song on the first side. And I was just like, okay, this makes no sense for me to continue playing the guitar because it just doesn't make sense. I might as well try to dunk a basketball with my 3-inch Jewish vertical leap. It doesn't make any freaking sense. And practicing was not going to make me that much better because I'd practiced all you could. So, you know, when I was 18, I was very lucky. I got a job putting up posters at Atlantic Records as an assistant trainee field merchandiser. And then I fell madly in love with the music business. I met AC/DC in the office, and that was all she wrote. You know?
Whoa, what era? Like 77?
No, 79 I started.
Highway to Hell, rad.
Yeah, end of July 1979, they gave me a Staple Guns, a double-sided tape, and a bunch of Led Zeppelin posters and sent me out to record stores. And I was like, this is the fucking greatest job ever. $4 an hour plus free records. I was like, are they kidding me? I'd pay them to do this job, you know? So, yeah. And then, you know, that's when I really first heard AC/DC. And you know, I found Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap in the hallway, just like sitting in a pile of garbage or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I took it home and listened to it and then got every one of their albums and then just became, you know, crazily addicted because, of course, there was High Voltage, there was Dirty Deeds, there was Let There Be Rock, and there was
Power Age.
Power Age, right? Power Age was probably my favorite. You know, I just, at that point, if You Want Blood, You Got It was the second one. Yeah, If You Want Blood. Yeah. I mean, so I just was like, this is it. I mean, at the time, Aerosmith, I'd grown up on Aerosmith and Zeppelin and Dylan and the Stones and the Beatles, like were probably my 5 favorite acts.
Were you seeing those bands live? Were you going to concerts?
Yeah, I used to go, you know, back when I was a kid, I grew up in New York, and you could go to Madison Square Garden at least once a week and see an absolute legitimate fucking genius, right? If it wasn't Queen, it was Sly and the Family Stone. If it wasn't Aerosmith, it was Stevie Wonder. I would see Rolling Stones at the Garden. I saw Zeppelin twice at the Garden. You know what I'm saying? Like the shit was real back then. It was amazing. And every week it was like this Pink Floyd, right? Madness. You know, like you could literally like just go to the Garden and see a genius. Like just throw a dart and a calendar, pop down there, and you'd be like, you know, the Who, like whatever, right? The shit was out of control. It's so great.
Just life changing, right? I mean, fuck. I was talking about it like the Cow Palace. You just go there and you're getting these memories that here we are in our lives now that are still in there like yesterday.
Dude, I saw Jethro Tull and Alice Cooper and Elton John, and like the shit was insane. And I had good taste. I went to all the best ones. Yeah. You know, I missed the Beatles. I was too young to see the Beatles. I never got to see them. That's one I really regret having missed out on. And then, you know, it extended on. I mean, that was the musical renaissance, right? Let's face it. And you know, I believe in that kind of stuff, right? There was the Renaissance in Italy for art, and there was a musical renaissance in Europe when the greatest composers were doing their thing. And then in America and England, the 60s and other countries as well, but, you know, centered on those two countries, 60s and 70s with the most incredible music, movies, books were being written, art like Picasso and Warhol running around right in that era. Like, it's like there was something in the zeitgeist that enabled people to, you know, explore and expand on the boundaries of creativity. And I was so blessed, we both were, to grow up in the time when you could go to the, you know, like I said, you could go to a show and see this level of just pure, unadulterated, magical genius. And it was, you know, I'll never forget it.
Well, I think you had these dark times too, of like Vietnam War. You had Watergate. You had you know, Jim Jones and Guyana and just crazy shit going on. And I think that people are just like, wow, I'm gonna stick to what I'm doing here. This doesn't look like we're gonna get out alive anyway, you know?
I mean, yeah, there's that. But I think, you know, it's weird to me that here we've had this crazy period of time in American history over the last, you know, 10 years or whatever you want to call it, And it hasn't inspired the same, level of, I mean, look, in those days, one of the great examples that I talk about is like those 4 kids were shot dead by the National Guard at Kent State. I don't know if anybody is listening is old enough to remember that, but you and I are. And there was that iconic photo of that girl screaming over her dead friend. What was it? 8 days later, Crosby, Stills and Nash released Ohio, right? And it changed everything, right? And you had the greatest protest songs being written across the board, right, by different types of artists. Dylan, of course, being, one of the, probably the most iconic of them all, but so many artists writing protest songs and leading movements. And now it seems like that's really missing, I mean, it's just been, it ain't there. And it's troubling to me.
I think a lot of that problem is people's armchair protesting on computers in the digital platform, which is really, really ruined it. People just sitting around looking at Facebook and shit instead of going out and creating art and really making a stand. You know what I'm saying? The cell phone and the computer. If people think I'm doing something, I told that guy to fuck off on Facebook, and it's not the same at all. It's
true, but musicians are different than us, right? I mean, they're a different breed of people. Musician, right? And at the end of the day, Brett Dennen had a really good protest song like 10 years ago, but it didn't reach any kind of mass audience. Ain't No Reason it was called, I liked
Dear Mr. President by what's his Bright Eyes. Remember that one? That was pretty.
Yeah. But again, we're picking isolated examples and none of them. And granted, nothing penetrates the cultural zeitgeist like it used to anyway.
Right.
I mean, when you look at the level of audience that's down, like even in TV shows, right? Where I was with one of the biggest TV producers recently, Ben Silverman, who produced The Office, whatever. And he was telling me, the definition of a hit in TV land, it used to be like a 14 share or something. Now it's like a 2 share. Because everything is so fragmented and splintered, but still that doesn't explain to me why there aren't more. We have some iconic artists these days, I mean,
totally,
but they aren't making that type of music. They're making, music, and they're making good music or great music or whatever. But protest music is not a thing at this moment. And it should be, because we are our country was just almost overthrown, right? We have the climate crisis that's about to destroy, the future of humanity, right? And granted, it's slow, and we deal better with immediate threats as human beings than we do with creeping threats. But there's a lot of crazy shit going on. That's, it's not like we didn't have the wars in the different places and I don't know, whatever. We can talk about this all day, but we have other things to talk about. But anyway, it's just one thing that's kind of like, the Stones did it, right? Talking about Charlie Watts, the Stones had their protest songs.
Yeah. And look at Devo. Once the Kent State shooting happens, Devo forms a week later. Right. And we get Devo, which is really radical as far as like a middle finger to that middle of America, like we're doing art, we're wearing weird shit, we're outside the box, you know what I'm saying? In a way that that created something wild from it, Yeah,
I'm just thinking about War of Children. It's just a shot away. Right? But anyway, hopefully it'll come back. There's going to be everything goes in cycles. I think rock and roll, maybe I'm crazy, but I believe it's going to make a comeback big time. Obviously, I'm really lucky to be working with Greta Van Fleet, who I think are leading the charge of the new generation of rock bands. And it's funny because going back to my earliest signing, my very first signing was Zebra.
Wow,
and
wow,
Zebra had, you could see like
you want.
Exactly, yeah. I love that song, Wait Until the Summer's Gone, too.
Yeah.
But, and it was so much fun working with them. But yeah, so there's sort of a through line. It's interesting with me, the signings that I've had over the years, you can sort of see how, Zebra 40 years later and Greta Van Fleet are musical brethren, And then at the same time, many, many years ago, I signed Tori Amos, right? And then more recently, Lorde. and in between Haley Williams, so like it's odd. I don't think there's any real rhyme or reason to it. It's just, I look for great music when I find incredibly talented artists, when I'm lucky enough to bump into one. I know it's like the great Ahmet Ertegun story of advice he gave one day to somebody who went on to become a legend in their own right. And he said, who asked him, hey, Mr. Ertegun, like, I want to become a big success in the music industry. What's the secret? And Ahmet said, Ahmet, of course, was the founder of Atlantic Records.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, kid, walk around with your head down. Maybe you'll bump into a genius, So that's why we show up at work every day in this A&R business, right? Going back to what you were saying before, Dean, it's like, you never know when you're going to run into something and you're going to hear something. Like, it used to be I would get a CD or a cassette, or I would go to a show. I remember seeing Skid Row for the first time in Newark, New Jersey, just because a guy named Jack Ponte called me, who was the songwriter I barely knew, right? And he calls me up and he goes, hey, hey, Flom, you should go to New Jersey tonight and see Skid Row at Studio One, it was called. Now, in those days, I would go to the opening of a car wash if I thought there might be a musical act to see there, So I was like, buckets. I rented a car, drove in a snowstorm out to Newark, New Jersey, and saw fucking Skid Row. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, this is unbelievable, right? This one comes with instructions, right? They played Youth Gone Wild, 18 in Life, I Remember You. And they got fucking Sebastian Bach, the greatest looking guy in the history of civilization, right? Bon Jovi used to call him Miss Texas. And, and he's up there singing his fucking ass off. And I was like, this is the greatest shit. I can't even believe I'm here. I'm so lucky. So yeah, look, I'm just, I'm lucky to be in a profession that I love, that I've gotten the chance to work with great artists like them and like Stone Temple Pilots and so many others throughout the years. Has been just, I'm a lucky fucking guy. What can I say?
Let's get into it. So you're working, you're putting posters up around town for Atlantic. And eventually you get into an A&R position. I've always wanted to talk to people about this as a A&R position. Do you come in as a junior, or how does this all happen? And how do you get granted signing power? And how many people does it have to go through once you sign the band? Like, I want to sign this band. Tell me the behind the world of that.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories, how I got into the A&R department. So there I am putting up posters, and I was like, I love Atlantic Records. They have my favorite acts here. I love the music business. I don't want to be a rock star anymore. I mean, I'm still clinging to it a little bit. I used to keep my guitar in my little office, my SG Standard, and I had my little cassettes on the desk and whatever. So Angus Young actually gave me a guitar lesson on an SG in my office at Atlantic Records when I was 18 years old. The shit changed me forever. Wow. But anyway, you can't make that stuff up, right? With a poster, Power Age poster behind him on the wall, right? He's sitting on my tiny little couch, and this tiny little office was the size of a walk-in closet. And but without getting into the whole story of how that happened, it was crazy. He taught me how to play Kicked in the Teeth and Riff Raff, and I was just like, "This, I can't even. My dreams aren't even this good." But anyway,
was Bond there?
Bond was there, yeah.
Whoa.
Well, that's how it happened, Dean. So like, I fell madly in love with AC/DC because I just found their music in the hallway. They weren't big in America. They were unknown in America,
right? I saw them in 78, man. And it's like, who is this?
Highway to Hell comes out and it goes, right? So I'm now even more obsessed than ever. I've got like I said, I've got the poster, I've got the thing, whatever. And I happen to play the same guitar that Angus did. I always did. That was the first guitar I got when I was a kid. And one day they came to the office and somebody alerted me they were coming to the office. And so I just waited in the lobby. And sure enough, the five of them come tootling. Atlantic Records was on the second floor at 75 Rockefeller Plaza. They come tootling out of the elevator, right? They're all about, 5'3". And first comes Phil Rudd holding a box. It looked like a pizza box, and he puts it on the receptionist desk. It was a cake. I found out later that they'd given him for the gold record as part of a little celebration up in the corporate office. He walks in, he puts it on the receptionist desk. He says, "Hey, I'm the pizza delivery guy. I got these pizzas. Who's gonna pay for these pizzas?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's the coolest fucking guy I've ever seen." And then comes the rest of the band, right? So I follow Bond into the office, into the hallway. And I go up to him, I go, Bond, oh my God, man, I'm freaking out just meeting you. Like, I always wondered, like, what it would be like to talk to you, because your voice, the way it's so crazy, everything, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, most people think I sing like this, right? He's holding his nose, and he says, anyway, Blair, he goes, I got a cocaine nose and no cocaine. You got any?
No way, really?
Yeah, I was like, well, I go, Bond, I don't have any, but I got some weed in my office. You want some? And he's like, hey, mate, man, I got some weed. So he comes down to my little tiny office, and I gave him my demo tape, which was sitting on my desk, and whatever little weed I might have had, I don't know. And next thing I know, he goes off, and they go into the conference room. I'm not allowed in there. I'm some fucking long-haired kid. I had hair down to, down to my, past my chest. And anyway, a couple hours later, I'm walking down the hallway, and I see Angus, Bond, and Malcolm knocking on the door of my friend Rafael Torres, who ran the dance music department, right? His door was closed. So I'm just kind of trying to stay out of the way. And I hear him knocking on the door, and Bond's going, is Jason in there? Yeah, is Jason in there? And I go, I know Jason wasn't a common name back then either, like it is now, right? And I was like, are you looking for me? And he goes, hey, this is the guy right here. Gave me his day. I'm going to take his guitar in his office, yeah? And then fucking Angus and Malcolm like, all right, mate. They fucking come tootling down to my office. Malcolm left, and Angus sat down and just started playing the fucking guitar. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting there having this rock and roll fantasy come true, right? And I felt like the kid in Animal House when the Playboy bunny flies in the window, right? When he's reading the magazine.
Yeah.
And and I'm fucking sitting there, Dean, right? And I'm asking him questions as he's sitting, like 5 feet away from me playing the guitar. And I go, I never forget. I go, Angus, I got to ask you, man. I go, you're so young. Because he was like, what, 18, 19 years old at the time?
Yep.
And I go, and you're so great. I go, when did you take up playing the guitar seriously? And he goes, I never took it up seriously. And I was like, oh my God, I got nothing else to say to that. And then, like I said, he shut. So that's how it happened. Right. But anyway, yeah, how's that one? Put that one in the put that one in your pipe and smoke it. So anyway.
I love that one. I got a cocaine nose and no cocaine in it.
Yeah, he goes, yeah, go. Hey. I was like,
I love he's just at the record company looking around for blow. Back then, though, the A&R guys had blow and shit.
Dude, the shit, that goes back to what you were saying. The shit was crazy back then. It was like a whole different world. Different world.
Yeah, right?
So, yep. So anyway, but how I got my break, and I think it's an important story for anyone who's trying to make it in the music industry or any business that you're in, right? Because, well, you'll see why. So here I am. I don't have an office anymore. They took that away. They're like, why we got this guy doesn't deserve an office? It makes $4 an hour. He puts up posters, right? So, but it was empty for a while. They gave it to me. Then they took it away. But so I'm sitting at a desk in the promotion department. And I was like, I got to find a way to the A&R department. I was delivering mail for people. I was doing whatever. I was doing anything that people want to get coffee. And I was like, how am I gonna find a band? I got to find a band. Right. Then maybe they'll give me a job doing A&R. Well, how the fuck am I going to find a band? I got a staple gun and some double-sided tape, right? And a ladder. But I was like, well, so I decided there was a magazine back then called Album Network. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a magazine called Album Network. And it was the Bible of rock radio. Every week they would print this publication. It was really for the music industry. And they would sell a lot of advertising. And on the cover, they would list the 4 hottest new releases, the 4 top records on the rock charts, the 4 greatest gainers, whatever it was, right? And then all through the magazine, they would have different things for radio programmers and music industry people. But at the back of the magazine, they had the playlist of every rock and roll radio station in the country. In the size, about very small size, right? They would print 35 or 40 records that the station was playing. It would have the name of the station, the name of the program director, and the phone number of the station. So I thought, if I sit here and study these lists every day, maybe I'll see one that's getting played that isn't already signed. And then maybe that'll be a band I could discover, right? Right. Kind of pre-screen. So, and then I would call the radio station, pretend I was in the A&R department, right? And ask to get the program director on the phone, and then ask him about the act. And most of the time they'd say, oh, no, what are you talking about? That's already signed to Capitol or something, right? Because it didn't list the label on it. Right. So I would just go by what I knew. So as fate would have it, one day I called WBAB in Long Island. I get a guy named Bob Buckman on the phone. He takes my call. He's the program director, 102.3 in Long Island. And I said, Bob, what's this act you're playing called The Lines? He goes, the lines, that is nothing. He goes, I put that on as a favor to somebody. You got to worry about that. I go, I don't even know why I said this, but I said to him, well, if you were me, who would you sign? And he goes, let me tell you about Zebra. I go, Zebra? What's Zebra? He goes, Zebra is the most requested band on this radio station. I go, oh, you mean the most requested? Because people used to call the radio stations.
Right.
Because back then you didn't have downloading. You didn't have and an independent band like that, you couldn't even buy the record. So you had to call the station and say, play that song again, right? So they would keep track of all the requests so they knew which ones to play more. So anyway, I said, the most requested local band, that's cute. He goes, listen, he goes, genius, let me tell you something, right? He goes, number 1 is Zebra, and then 2, 3, and 4 was Ozzy, Zeppelin, and I think maybe AC/DC. And I was like, holy fuck. This is my break, right? How do I get a hold of this music? So he says, let me get the guys on the phone. So he gets them on the other phone. There was no 3-way calling back then.
Yeah.
The next day I get to my office. They lived in New Orleans. The singer's name was Randy Jackson.
Zebra lived in New Orleans?
Yeah, they're from New Orleans. They used to play New York in the summer because it's too hot in New Orleans, and they play New Orleans in the winter.
Yeah, because I knew they were like a Zeppelin cover band, and they would play like 3-4 sets out in Long Island. Yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah, that's what they would split it up between, and they would sell out everywhere. So anyway, the next day I get to my desk and there's a FedEx package. Now I didn't know from FedEx. Nobody sent me a FedEx before. I was like, holy shit, what's this? A FedEx package. This is great, right? So I open it up and there's a Zebra album in it, but I don't have any place to play an album. So I go, or it was a cassette or whatever it was. I can't remember. So I go to this A&R guy's office, right? And I said, you're about to hear the next big thing. And he says, oh, yeah, did you listen to it? I go, no, I didn't listen to it. I'm just telling you, this is it, right? So he puts it on. I'm so excited, I can't even think straight. And he tells me, this is no good. He tells me 18 reasons why it's no good. I go back to him. I'm crushed.
Wow.
And I go back and I'm dialing Randy on the phone, the singer, to tell him that his shit is no good. And there's an assistant. They used to call secretaries. Now they call assistants, whatever, right? But she was sitting in front of me. Her name was Mary. I said, Mary, this doesn't make any sense. How am I calling a guy who's number 1 on the station, selling out every club, and I'm telling him his shit is no good?
But did you like it?
I couldn't even hear. I was too excited. Like I wasn't even able. I was out of my body at this point because I was looking at my big break. So I think I liked it, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
So, but I knew that I'm intelligent enough to recognize that it doesn't matter whether I liked it, right? What mattered was that the public liked it. Right. The fans were already speaking. They're the ones that get to decide, not me.
Built-in audience.
Bingo. So she says, don't make any sense to me. So I call Randy up. I said, listen, the guy told me it's no good, but I'm going to give it to the president of Atlantic, see what he thinks. Now, the president of Atlantic, he didn't know me from a fucking hole in the wall. He was just somebody I would avoid when I walked down the hallways reeking of weed, carrying posters. But I put a cassette together. I wrapped it up in a note and I stuck it on his assistant's desk. She had a pile of cassettes that were never going to get listened to, like a wall of these fucking. But as fate would have it, he grabs a few on his way home from work to listen to in his car. Now, he happens to live in Long Island, right? So he's driving home, listening to Zebra, Who's Behind the Door. And he decides he doesn't like it. So he pops it out of the tape deck and the fucking thing was playing on the radio.
Whoa.
Right? Because he had his station tuned to WBAB because that's what everybody listened to back then. So he does a total double take, right? And at the end of the song, the DJ says that's the most requested song in the history of WBAB, Zebra, Who's Behind the Door. He comes in the next day, Dean, he goes, this is genius. I was like, what? And that's the beginning of the story of my first break. And then, of course, the record was a blowout hit. When it came out, the kids were all cutting school and going to the record stores like it was a new Guns N' Roses album or something. Like they were just like flocking these stores because they'd been waiting for years for their favorite artist to put on an album. When it came out, they were grabbing it out of the box. They couldn't even put the price on it. Wow. They were some buying 2 and 3 copies. And so they gave me a job. They were like, hey, this kid looks like he knows what he's doing. We better give him a job. And then the next one I was Twisted Sister. And that was it was off to the races. So,
whoa, you signed Twisted Sister.
Well, the truth is I did everything in my power to sign. Zebra told me about Twisted Sister. And I went to see them on a Wednesday night in Poughkeepsie. Now I had bought their single when I was in high school. I'll Never Grow Up Now for $3.69 at Disco Mat. but I never really saw them, right? They never played in Manhattan, and I didn't have a car, so I didn't get out to the suburbs. But Randy from Zebra says to me, Flom, you got to see Twisted Sister. They're the greatest live band in the world. We can't touch them, and nobody else can either. And Zebra was opening for Twisted Sister, which I thought was strange because Zebra was signed and they weren't. So I go up to the fucking Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie on a Wednesday night, and there were 3,000 kids there.
I saw the documentary, dude. I saw it. It fucking blows my mind. Every label turns them down for like 5 fucking years. They never give up. They're selling out arenas, like big theaters and shit. No record deal. They're making crazy cash. They got tunes, and no label would touch them. Nobody was blowing my mind.
So I go to the fucking Mid-Hudson Civic Center. Zebra and this other band open. I think they were called DC Star. They got polite applause. Twisted Sister comes on stage, and they let me stand on the stage. I've never done that before. And the place erupted. And D comes out, and he gets on stage, and he goes, hey, New York, Poughkeepsie, whatever. He goes, we just got back from fucking England. I'm sick and fucking tired of hearing limey motherfuckers telling us how bloody fucking good we are. He goes, what do you New York motherfuckers have to say? And these kids, every one of them throws their fist in the air and goes, Twisted fucking Sister. And I was like, I'm done. Right? I don't care. Nothing matters.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they can play a note or what they do. Of course, they put on the greatest show, right? Because they were a fucking incredible band.
Right.
But I mean, they're underrated, I think, in history. But on a live basis, they were top notch.
Oh, and yeah, dude. I sat 4 feet away. I introduced Twisted Sister on the last show ever at the Roxy. They did a favor for Ricky Rackman, and I sat 4 feet away. I got it on video. And look, I just got goosebumps because Dee Snider was this is about 5-6 years ago, was a goddamn, I mean, it was a tornado. I just couldn't believe this guy. I mean, I've seen him many, many, many times, but to see him 2 feet away, it's like, what is going on with this guy? He's like 70. He's killing it.
Yeah. Now put him back when he was in his 20s, and you can imagine the shit was on fire. So it was an amazing experience. Of course, then I drove home with JJ, the guitar player. I might have gotten home at 6 a.m. I don't even know. Poughkeepsie's about 100 miles from New York City, 120 miles away. I got about 2 hours of sleep. I was probably still, stoned from the night before. I stumble into my boss's office and I go, I found religion last night. And he goes, what the fuck are you talking about? And I go, Twisted Sister. And he goes, get the fuck out of my office. And because I didn't realize they were considered like, right, total joke by the music industry. But
totally.
I didn't. And I'll never forget. I go the next night. I go down to South Jersey to the Fountain Casino in Aberdeen Township, New Jersey. So now we're 100 miles south of New York, right? So 200 and something miles away from where I was the night before, and there were 3,700 kids there. And then I come back again the next day, same thing, and I get thrown out of the fucking guy's office. And but I was like, this is something doesn't make any sense here. Like these fucking guys are superstars, and the kids love them. Like, how could the music industry? And I'll never forget, Dean, at one point, I kept going back to the president of Atlantic and like fucking putting it on the line, and he would throw me out of his office every time. And one day, an older guy in the music industry, who had sort of taken an interest in me, we're in the lobby of the record company. I run into him, and he puts his arm around me, goes, "Hey kid, listen, you know what? You got a hit with this Zebra band. You got a good future ahead of you, but you're really making a jackass out of yourself with this Twisted Sister shit. You got to stop, right? You're gonna ruin your career if you keep talking about Twisted Sister." I was like, "Thanks a lot." And then at the end of that year, so this is how it really happened. The end of that year, Atlantic had just had the worst year after the best year. The year before, we had 5 of the top 10 albums. Yes, Genesis, Foreigner, Rolling Stones, and Zeppelin, I think. We're all in the top 10. At the same time, Stevie Nicks, it was on fire. And then the next year, we had nothing. None of these albums came out. None of the new artists were breaking. Whatever, it was a bad year. So it was a meeting of the A&R department. Now they had let me in because of Zebra. And so it was a meeting of the A&R department. And I'll never forget, the president of Atlantic says, listen, we're all in this together, sink or swim. We're going to we win, one wins, we all win, whatever the hell speech it. And he says, but I'm just going to say right now, Jason, if you ever mention the name Twisted Sister again, you will never work another day at this record company. Wow. I'd become such a fucking pain in the ass, right?
Right.
So I was like, I was like, damn, I got to find a different way to do this, you know? And I would go home at night, and my dad was my hero, you know, my mentor. And I would ask him, Dad, what do I do? And he would always give me different ideas. Now, finally, he's like, look, I don't got any more ideas for you, right? What are you going to do? But so one day I saw Phil Carson in the hallway. Now, Phil Carson was a guy, he didn't know me, but I knew he ran Atlantic in England. And I knew he was the guy who had discovered AC/DC, and he had discovered so many big acts over the years. And I thought maybe I could get this guy to listen to me. And by the way, now Twisted Sister was getting played on WPLJ, which was the biggest radio station in New York City, in Manhattan, right? Selling out the Palladium. Like, I'm like, how is this not connecting to anybody else? So I go up to Phil Carson. I go, Phil, you got to listen to me, man. I give him a cassette. I give him all my handwritten notes, how much the independent record is selling, all the airplay, the shows, whatever. I find out later he took the whole thing and threw it in the garbage. But they happened to open. Twisted went over to England and opened. You probably saw this in the movie. They opened for, I think, Foreigner or something in England. And right. Phil happened to go to that show. And he calls me up the next day and he said, this is the greatest band I've seen since I saw AC/DC the first time. I said, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm going to sign him. I said, what are you going to do about America? He says, I'm going to get Atlantic to put it out in America. Don't you worry about it. And so that's how it happened. So technically, Phil signed him. Right. But I did, you know, I think I get a pretty big asterisk on that fucking story, which is why I'm in the movie anyway. But yeah, so then long story short, then my next one was a girl named Fiona. She had a half a hit with a song called Talk to Me. And then, you know, then I started making a little more money, and then I got more fucked up, and then I ended up in rehab. And that's how that was the early 80s for me in a nutshell.
Wow. And you signed Skid Row, right?
That was after I came out. Yeah, I came out of rehab in 87.
Cocaine?
Yep. That's what got me down. And I was totally sober for over 22 years. And now, you know, and I basically am now too. I don't touch anything anymore, you know, with a lot of coffee. Yeah. You know, but totally uninterrupted for 22 and a half years. And, you know, when I came out of rehab, the first one was White Lion for me.
Wow.
And then Skid Row. And then things, you know, kept going from there. Tori Amos, Collective Soul. You know, there was an amazing A&R guy back then named Kim Stevens who brought me a number of these things. He was the one who found Collective Soul. And then, you know, then they gave me the opportunity to start my own company inside of Atlantic. They wanted me to restart Atco Records, but I said it sounded old, so I named it Lava Records. Lava because it's hot. Right. And it destroys everything in its path, and it sounds like love, and it means clean in Spanish. So I was like, you know what? Lava Records. So, you know, we started Lava Records with 3 employees, no artists, a small budget. And then Lava got hot, you know, and, you know, first it was Edwin McCain and Jill Sobule and Biff Naked and Civ. We all had small hits with all of these acts, but then Edwin McCain had a big hit. Wow. Then Sugar Ray.
Oh, wow.
Then Matchbox 20.
Wow.
And then Kid Rock, you know.
Whoa.
So, and it was around that time also that I helped create Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Cool. So that was another one of ours, and Simple Plan and Uncle Cracker. I mean, we were so hot that it was nuts. Like, we put one of those signs in the lobby. We put a big furry lava sign. It was a red furry lava sign. And you know how, like in Times Square, they have that thing where it says like the national debt and the numbers keep going up.
The ticker.
We put a sign like that, number of records sold, and it just kept going like this. We were just like, it was crazy. We were having diamond records. Diamond means 10 million or more, right? I mean, shit, Matchbox versus Records probably close to 20 million. Kid Rock's probably 15 million by now. Like, it was crazy. And that wasn't, of course, Kid Rock's first record. It was his fourth one. Was the first one with us. And we had so much fun. You know, we really built a nice culture at the company, and we treated people well, and they did a great job for us. We had an amazing A&R guy named Andy Karp back then. So, you know, Kim Stevens was our secret weapon. You talk about Zutat and these other guys. There's these guys that people haven't heard of, right? Like Kim Stevens, who, you know, discovered Matchbox 20 and brought it to me. I'll never forget what he sent me. It was called Tabitha Secret, right? And he's the same guy. I think he also was the one who found Edwin McCain. Maybe another one along the way too. And then Andy Karp, man, this guy was a guy, you know, he didn't look like an A&R guy, I'll tell you what, but he found, ready for this? Simple Plan. He found Kid Rock. He found Uncle Cracker. And there was one other one that he found that was great. So, yeah, so we had our own little cadre of under the radar, little A&R wizards. They didn't get the publicity or notoriety like Kolodner and those guys did. And of course, in those days, Kolodner and Gary Gersh and Zutat were the ones that drove the entire, unbelievable run of Geffen Records. So
now are those A&R guys, are they getting points on the record?
In those days, I didn't get points on records, strangely enough, until I started my own label. I had no financial upside except for a discretionary bonus.
Wow.
That's kind of the way the business operated back then. And so, our guys didn't get it either. They got bonuses and things.
I always thought they got like points.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And I think in some companies they did, but Atlantic didn't allow it. And since we were part of Atlantic, it was a very strange thing. I mean, for a long time there, I didn't even realize I was getting screwed, And, I'll tell you the funny story. The first time I got what I thought was a big check after Skid Row's debut had sold like 6 million copies. And I got a check for $200,000 as a bonus. And I called my mom, which was, in retrospect, that was not a good bonus based on 6 million albums, right? But anyway, I called my mom and I go, Mom, I got a big bonus check. I'm gonna get a Porsche. She goes, a Porsche? Where are you going to put a Porsche, you idiot? You live in an apartment. I was like, no, Mom, the vroom, vroom, like, drive. She didn't know what I was talking about. She wasn't.
Did you get a Porsche?
Yeah, I got a Porsche. That's what I did.
911?
Yeah, 911.
What year?
Red with a black top. I don't remember. It was a Carrera.
Guards red.
Called a Carrera 2 or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. C2. Yeah, that's a 964. Rad.
Yeah, it was great. No.
Now, let me ask you something on. It's great to talk to a guy that's been in the business because there's I think the way today that you get signed is you're just big on like Bandcamp or one of those things or YouTube. And then they go, hey, go sign that band, but I was DJing around Hollywood when Katy Perry was floating around as a nobody. And, she was wacky girl. She was always over by the DJ booth, like, hey, I play music. And she's wearing like a rabbit suit onesie or whatever. Just, wacky girl. How does a person like that end up getting a deal? Because was she writing her own songs? Was she cutting demos? Because she always said she played music, but she wasn't doing gigs or anything that I knew of. You know what I mean?
Katy was originally signed as a Christian artist to Island Records. Right?
Gotcha.
And she was dropped, and then she was signed to Columbia, and they didn't know what to do with her. And what happened with me was I hired a woman named Angelica Cobb, a fantastic person, not really, sadly, not with us anymore. But she was I knew her from Atlantic. She had been in the publicity department at Atlantic. She was one of only 3 people that believed in Kid Rock besides me. And she had by now become, I think, number 2 in the publicity department at Columbia. So when I took over Virgin Records, because, long story short, after I sold Lava to Atlantic, I ended up being the chairman and CEO of Atlantic for a little while, which is when I signed Paramore. But that didn't work out. And I ended up getting fired over a poem I wrote, but that's beside the point. And anyway, so I end up going to run Virgin Records, which was the coldest and worst company in the music industry at the time, which looked like a great challenge to me, and it was. But I signed Red Jumpsuit Apparatus a day after I got there, which was kind of great, or 3 days after I got there. But that's beside the point. So, but with Katy, I hired Angelica to be our head of publicity, which was a great idea. And because, like I said, she was super talented. And she says to me one day, Columbia's getting ready to drop this girl named Katy Perry. I think she's a star. You should sign her. And I was like, all right, let me meet with her, So we had lunch at the Polo Lounge in LA. Wow. She walks in and sits down, and I go, I don't even need to hear the music. Like, this girl's a star. Like, I have this sort of weird radar that I can kind of recognize a star when I see one. And she walked in, sat down, looking at like a star, walking and talking like a star. She had Jesus tattooed on her wrist. I got that whole crazy story, and then about her upbringing. And then I got the music and that she had recorded for Columbia, and I loved it. And I was so excited. And I got my group of my key executives together, and I said, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm going to sign this girl, Katy Perry. And I played it for them. And they were like, oh shit, this stuff sucks. I was like, what? I was so, you know how that is? Like when you get a great something, you're really excited, we play it for your friends, and they're like, dude, take that shit off. Give me the aux cord. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, fuck. Like, and then I second guessed myself. I was like, oh man, maybe I'm dumb. Like, and then, so I kind of took my foot off the gas there for a minute. And then I was in my garage working out over Christmas. And I used to have a little place in Aspen, a little house in Aspen, whatever. And I was in Aspen working out in my garage. And I'm listening to Katy just because I loved listening to it. And I was like, holy shit, I'm an idiot. Like, I totally fucked this up. How could I listen to these people? They fucking threw me off. And I figured she had probably signed to somebody else by then, but I called her up. She was working at this little fucking company called Taxi, and like demo listening service company. She was broke as a joke. And she was going, no one was interested in her. And so we did the deal, and and that's how it started, you know. And
when she does the deal, do you end up putting out the Capitol stuff, or do you find writers, or was she writing the music? What was going on with her?
No, that's a good question. So what happened was, she walked into, I invited her to our Grammy party in February. Because like I said, it was December when I made the fateful decision to sign her. And so February, I invited her to our Grammy party. I wanted her to meet people, you know, and get in the mix with stuff, you know. And she walked in with Dr. Luke. And I was like, holy shit. I go, you guys know each other? And they're like, yeah, we've been friends for a while. I was like, well, then we got to make this happen, right? So then I was like on a mission. I said, we got to get you guys in the studio together. And that turned out to be the magic combination. Obviously, Luke is, unbelievably brilliant songwriter and producer. And he, along with Kathy Dennis and Max Martin and others, they ended up doing I Kissed a Girl and Hot and Cold.
Wow.
And that was, and it's funny because I remember, I think this might even be in the Katy Perry movie, but I remember, Dean, I called Katy up and I go, Katy, Kiss the Girl is going to be the first single. And she goes, no, it can't be. And I was like, why not? She goes, because my parents are never going to speak to me again if we do that, because they were like, evangelical. And I said, they'll speak to you again after it goes number one. I was right.
I always wanted to know how these pop people get into the mix, because they're not necessarily songwriters. And I know the world of pop, it's been around since the music started. But, from my growing up, Sean Cassidy all the way up, let's say, to every pop guy, say a Bieber and all these people. Is it something that you see in the person and go, all right, I can sell this package if I can just get the right songs? Is that really what it is?
I don't know. Every situation is different. And, I've done a lot more rock and roll records than pop records. So right. I'm probably not the anything like a leading expert on this, but, I've always gravitated towards stars. It goes back to like we were talking about Twisted Sister or Skid Row or any of these Axstone Temple Pilots. And, I grew up seeing rock stars and seeing larger than life characters. I used to go see Kiss. Right. And to me, it's just applying those same rock and roll principles, right? Now, interestingly, sometimes they come fully formed, right? When I discovered Lorde, she already had the song. She was born a star, right? I mean, she's a reluctant star, but I saw the first show she ever did performing her own music in Auckland, New Zealand when she was 15. And she was already like totally comfortable on stage. And, sometimes people are just born with it, and so in her case, she wrote all the songs, but Katy writes all the songs too. So look, every situation is different. Haley was the same thing. I mean, she was 15 when she came to my office, sat down and played the guitar. A guy named Steve Robertson was the A&R guy who found her and brought her in. And she just sat there, played the guitar, Dean, and stared right through me like laser beams coming out of her eyes. I was like, oh my God, this girl's going. Like, I might as well just like don't fight it, because she's going to run over anybody that doesn't see this. So I have like this weird sort of spidey senses. I mean, look, I'm wrong more than I'm right. Everybody is, but I'm wrong maybe less often than most of the other people in the business. So therefore, I get to have a long, nice career and work with so many of these fantastic. And Jesse J was the same thing. I mean, Jesse J is an unbelievable singer that I signed, about 10 years ago, but also just a magically gifted performer and a great writer. I mean, she wrote all those songs, Price Tag, Domino,
Wow.
Do It Like a Dude. I mean,
Wow.
these songs are, she's a real artist. So and I think most pop stars do write their material as well. You look at Taylor Swift and these other ones, they write their songs. Yeah.
Let's get into how Greta Van Fleet happens. I hear them early on the EP, and I was like, "Oh shit, this band's got some songs." Because to me, it's all about the songs. There's a million bands out there right now that have got the wallet chains and the people, the publicist is like that next rock thing. And, they throw on the clothes. We know the look and everything, but they have no songs. So Greta Van Fleet comes out immediately, has songs. I'm like, wow, there is some songs on this EP. How does this happen? Are you the guy that finds them and signs them? What's going on there?
Yeah. And by the way, I want to put in a plug before we go any further. If you want to learn more about the stuff that I do, I mean, follow me on Instagram. It's Jason Flom, ITS Jason Flom. And of course, we'll talk about my podcast, Wrongful Conviction, as well. But
yeah, we're going to get there. Absolutely.
Check that out. But just in case people are in a hurry, they're on their way to work or something, and they don't get to hear the rest of the podcast, I want to.
Oh no, they listen all the way through.
Oh, great. So anyway, Greta Van Fleet, my friend Nick Ferrara, who I met in college at NYU. So Nick and I were in honors Russian expansionism class together at NYU. I was working at Atlantic while going to NYU, and I dropped out of NYU in my junior year, though, but full disclosure. But so I was sitting in this class at NYU, like I said, wearing my Billy Squier t-shirt that I had gotten for being one of the gang of vocalists on his Christmas record. I can't sing at all. I'm sure they drowned me out or tuned me out. And but they gave everybody a t-shirt, like $1 or something. But anyway, Christmas is the time to say I love you is the name of that song.
Billy Squier, killer, man. Love him. Love it.
And, and anyway, so some guy taps me on the shoulder and hands me a beer, and it was cold. So I drank it in class, and that was Nick Ferrara. And then we became friends, and he used to bring me music. He wanted me to sign. And, he actually brought me Rat. I fucked that one up. I was like, why do I need Rat? I just signed Twisted Sister,
Wow. You didn't.
I fucked that one up. They ended up on Atlantic anyway, but I really messed that one up. But anyway, so Nick, I ended up giving Nick a job in the A&R department when he got to college. He went on to become an attorney in the music industry, and I sent him the Corrs, a huge Irish band that I signed, and Trans-Siberian Orchestra as clients. And he's gone on to become a very, very successful lawyer in the music industry. And I guess payback's a bitch, right? So he sent me Greta Van Fleet, and I put it on. I was actually with my son at the time.
Where did he get it?
Nick represented them.
I gotcha.
He's sort of the go-to guy for a lot of rock bands. He represents a lot of rock bands. And so I think he may have gotten it from Marlon Young, who produced their first album, who was a guitar player in Kid Rock's band, or one of them. And anyway, or the producer, he was a guitar player in Kid Rock's band. So anyway, so Nick sent it to me, and I put on Highway Tune. I was with my son, and my son looks at me and is like, Dad, what the fuck is this? He's like, how does this guy sing like that? And I was like, damn, yeah, what the hell, So I remember we were somewhere. I don't think we were at home, but wherever we were, we put it on, and both of us had the same reaction. And Mike Flom, he's more of a hip hop kid. He's coming up in the business now. Funny enough, he's got a production company called Flom, which stands for Love of Music.
Wow.
And he's got a hot young producer named Most Likely who's coming up the charts. And he's making it. He's at NYU also. So it's kind of like little mini me, except he's bigger than I am. He's like 6'1". Yeah. So anyway, that's how Greta Van Fleet was found.
So you hear it and immediately you go, I'm going to sign him?
Yeah, immediately. Yeah, it wasn't really complicated. And then
do you go see him? Do you fly out? What was going on? Were they touring and playing?
No, they weren't. I don't know. They weren't doing. I don't know if there was any shows they were doing at that time, but it wasn't even complicated. I don't think there was anybody else really interested in them at that time, and so it wasn't a hard deal to make. Funny how some of the biggest artists are the ones that none of the music industry, that no one in the music industry is paying attention to, or that everybody's passed on. But that's the way it is. So yeah, we did the deal. Look, I have great partners, Monty and Avery Littman at Republic, and they got it. I mean, and credit to them, because nobody was signing rock and roll at that time, right? The people were like, no, it's just hip hop and this and that. And they were like, no, this, we got to do some rock and roll, and like, this is great. And I'll never forget, they come. So we have at Republic Records, my company Lava is partners with Republic, and they have like a stage in the office and a nice little setup with some stadium seating and stuff. And so Greta came in and performed in our lobby and on the 8th floor at Republic. And they fucking killed it. They did like 3 songs or whatever they do. It's middle of the day. People go back to work. And I go back to my office, and Monty Littman's sitting there, right? He was at the time the head of the biggest record company in the business, Republic Records. And he and I have been friends and rivals, and partners over the years. We used to have a friendly rivalry, and now we work together. But he's sitting on my couch. I walk in my office, and he goes, "What the fuck did I just see?" And I was like, yeah. And he goes, oh man, he goes, we gotta take this to the limit, And I was like, yeah, buddy, I'm glad you get it, because I get it. And it's funny, it goes back to many years ago when I first signed Kid Rock. Everybody thought he was a joke. And I brought Ahmet Ertegun to see him, right? Ahmet Ertegun, the legendary founder of Atlantic, at the time was in his 70s, right?
Yeah.
And wearing, he always dressed like almost like royalty. The guy was fucking.
He was royalty.
Yeah, and I brought him to see Kid Rock. He performed there was a party at SIR in LA, or the Hollywood Billiards Club, whatever that place is.
Oh yeah, that's there. Yeah.
Yeah, and he performed there, and I brought Ahmet to see him. There must have been 50 people there, and Ahmet comes up to me after the show, and he goes, you know what? He goes, you found fucking Elvis. I was like, and the next day I brought Rock over to the peninsula where Ahmet was staying. And, Ahmet's there by the pool in his bathrobe, and we're all hanging out, and they became great friends. And Ahmet, it's amazing how even in his 70s, he still got it,
Wow.
So, yeah.
Let's get into what you're doing now, which is just pure love out there, man. You basically got a podcast, and it seeks out wrongful convictions. And of course, we know it's going to be mostly Blacks and Hispanics and the people that are just locked up for insane things they didn't do. And it's super obvious they didn't do it, and they still go to prison, which makes me crazy. Let's get into this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for bringing that up. I mean, I've been involved with criminal justice reform for 28 years.
How'd you get into it?
I got into it just because of a story I read in the New York Post, of all places. Just happened to be one of those serendipitous things. This particular day, the Times was sold out. I picked up the Post, and there was a story about a kid who was doing 15 years to life. His name was Stephen Leonard, 15 years to life for a nonviolent first offense cocaine possession charge in a maximum security prison in New York State. And I was reading this, and I'm like, what the fuck am I reading right now? Right now, remember, I had coke problems as a kid, but I got sent to rehab, because I was like silver spoon guy or whatever, and I was like, holy shit, that could have been me, I mean, it was nonviolent first offense cocaine possession charge. You got 15 to life. And I was like, what in the fuck is going on here? Right. So long story short, I said, I got to do something about this. Right. So his mom had been trying to get clemency from the Governor Mario Cuomo. Right. This, was the governor back then, and the father of the governor who just left office yesterday in the scandal. But anyway, so I got the woman, the mom, her name was Shirley, on the phone. Her number was in the phone book in Rome, New York. I said, I got to help. Like, I don't have a lot of money, because I didn't back then, right? I was 32 years old. She said, but I said, I'll send you what I got. You got to get a new lawyer or do something. I knew nothing about the legal system or the laws. And she said, well, it's very sweet, but, we've exhausted all of our appeals. We spent our life savings, And she said, we have no more appeals left. And I was just like, this is terrible, right? I don't understand. So all my whole concept of fairness and equity was out the window. And so I got the only criminal defense lawyer I knew on the phone, a guy named Bob Kalina. He represented Stone Temple Pilots and Skid Row. As both of them were artists that I had signed, and they were getting arrested like every week, it seemed like, right? So wow, I'm exaggerating, but so I had him on fucking speed dial. So I go, Bob, what can we do about this? He goes, nothing. There's nothing you can do. It's the Rockefeller drug laws. It just is what it is. I go, well, listen, man, talk to Shirley Lennon on the phone for me. He said, yeah, sure. So he talked to her. He calls me up a month later. He says, look, no, first he said, I'll read the transcripts of the trial as a favor to you. He reads them. He calls me up. He goes, listen, man, we're not going to win, but I'll take the case pro bono, and we'll see what we can do. So I go, okay, great. 6 months later, we end up in a courtroom in Malone, New York, up by the Canadian border. I'm sitting there holding Mrs. Lennon's hand with her husband Stan sitting on the other side of her. And they bring in Steven in shackles, right? Like he's fucking Charles Manson or something. He's got his hands shackled to his waist. His legs are chained together. He's walking like that, that walk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is very strange, nonviolent first offense. And there was an old judge with white hair. He looked like Ted Forsyth or something. I go, this guy ain't going to do us any favors. But the arguments go back and forth. I have no idea what's going on. I still had a mullet back then. I was wearing purple Doc Martens, okay? And and the arguments go back and forth. And the judge bangs the gavel down and goes, the motion is granted. And Bob comes running over. I go, Bob, what happened? He goes, we won. I go, what? Fuck, what are you talking about? He goes, we won. I go, get the fuck out of here. That's the greatest shit. Are you kidding me? And they sent the fucking kid home. Wow. And I was like, that's the greatest thing. That's the greatest feeling I'd ever had. And I was like, this is now I know what to do with the rest of my life, So I decided to get involved as deeply as I could. I read an article in Rolling Stone magazine, who still does the best reporting, I think, on this issue, and about the Grateful Dead shows where the DEA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Yeah, they were sending in DEA agents to pose as hippies, as deadheads, and setting these kids up to sell them a little bit of LSD and then send them to prison for 10 years. And I was like, or more. And I was like, they mentioned this organization called Families Against Mandatory Minimums that was working to fix this. So I called them up. I got on their board. Then I saw something on TV about the Innocence Project, about a case where a guy had been sentenced to death who was innocent. And the Innocence Project, shortly before he was going to be executed, found the DNA. And some genius with a microscope, Barry Scheck, Peter Neufeld, whatever, they found the DNA and they got back into court and they proved this guy was innocent. Instead of being executed, he was freed. And I was like, that's the craziest shit I've ever seen. So I just sort of went down to their office, marched in and said, I'm your guy. I'll do whatever you want and more. And so I became the first board member at the Innocence Project, the founding board member, and not the founder. I mean, the founders are Barry and Peter, but sometimes people mix that up. But so that's been a huge part of my life. And it's been incredible. I mean, I've been involved in getting dozens and dozens and dozens of people out of prison through clemencies and other different ways that I work on these cases. And those are the direct ones. And then indirectly, I've lost count. But, the problem is there's a vast number of people in prison in America who are innocent. And then there's a much bigger number of people who are in prison who don't belong there, but may have been convicted. Listen, today, an organization that I love called the Three Strikes Project in Stanford. I just got an email right before we got on the air from the guy who runs it, Michael Romano. He just got his client out of prison, Michelle. I can look it up. Her last name. I'll look up her last name. She was serving life without parole for stealing a fucking VCR. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. For stealing a VCR. Never done anything violent in her life.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now what her name is. Hold on a second. I'm going to tell you her name. They just won that case. These cases are.
Is that fucking, all under the Three Strikes?
Yep. That's Three Strikes. Exactly. Michelle Thiessen, Theisen. I'll be posting about it on my Instagram. Again, it's Jason Flom. But yeah, after serving 27 years for stealing a VCR, Michelle was released from the Central California Women's Facility thanks to amazing work with Three Strikes Project student Rachel Glanz, staff attorney Melina Blake, and most of all by Michelle herself, who did a staggering amount of work to win her own freedom. She was convicted and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years under the three strikes law in 1996, despite never having committed a violent crime. It goes on from there. She's a Canadian citizen, etc. Anyway, but so it's been an unbelievably rewarding thing, I mean, and these people, I became so deeply affected by the people that I've met through this work. I'm talking specifically about the exonerees, but anyone who served time in prison for sort of a, and came out with a bounce in their step and a positive attitude. And but the people who are innocent, right, who were sentenced to death, who were, who served 20, 30 or more years, 40 years for something they didn't do. These are the most extraordinary people you're ever going to meet. And as I became more and more connected to them, doing everything I could to help them on the outside, whether it's getting jobs or helping them get a car, I will support them in any way I can as they try to rebuild their lives. So I started this podcast, Wrongful Conviction, because I wanted to tell these stories, because I thought if we could tell these stories, individual human stories of tragedy and triumph, then we can affect people's attitudes about this issue. And we can also help to prevent wrongful convictions from happening in the future with the same alarming degree of regularity. Something like 10% of people in prison in America are actually innocent, and that's, and let's say it's half, let's say it's 5%, but it's more, right? So, but take either number. If it's 5%, that's 115,000. If it's 10%, that's 230,000 innocent people sitting behind bars while we're sitting here blabbing at each other right now, right? And by the way, 2 of them are in my house, right? I mean, I'm at my house at the beach right now, and they're my guests, So we have, right down the hall for me right now is Roddy Johnson, who was sentenced to death in Pennsylvania. He was released after 24 years in December. 24 years, he's actually innocent. The state has admitted that he is 100% innocent of the crime that he was convicted of. And, so he's starting work on Wall Street September 1st. I helped him get a job on Wall Street, but it's an amazing company. Galaxy gave him an opportunity, and he's going to hit it out of the park. So he's going from death row to Wall Street in eight months. And then also down the hall is my friend Felipe Rodriguez, who I've become super connected to. He did 27 years and 9 months in New York for a crime he absolutely didn't commit. Both of them. Well, Felipe's been on my podcast. I'm going to record one with Roddy as well. But Felipe's been declared actually innocent as well. He was in for 20. He was training to be a cop when he was arrested and framed by cops in New York. And so
wasn't he framed multiple times?
No, Felipe just once, but we've had other guys who've been framed multiple times. I mean, listen, my guy Marcus Wiggins is coming out here later in the week to visit me. Marcus was framed. He was tortured by cops in Chicago when he was 13 years old. 13 fucking years old. They tortured him until he confessed to a crime he didn't commit. And then ultimately they framed him when that didn't stick, and his mother sued the police department and won. They framed him a second time for murder, but he was in Wisconsin when the murder happened in Chicago. And then they framed him a third time, same cops, 3 times. And the third time it stuck. And he did, I think, 23 years in prison the third time. The poor guy still got a stutter. You could hear it on the podcast because of the beating that he took when he was 13 from these cops. They tortured him. I'm talking about Abu Ghraib type of shit, beating him, training him to a wall, putting bags over his head, beating him with phone books, putting electrical shocks on his nuts. These cops went to jail, some of them, right? This is not me making up a story. They did this to hundreds of black men in Chicago over the years. So the point being, this problem is massive. And, in listening to the podcast, I think people can learn a lot. And we make, the good news is the podcast, we're getting Wrongful Conviction we're talking about, has positively impacted a number of cases that we know of, where people's have had their cases reopened or have had positive outcomes that they have attributed, or the lawyers have attributed, at least in part, to people that have listened to the podcast that had some ability to affect the outcome of the case. But the best ones are the ones we'll never know about, right? I mean, the ones that I sleep well not knowing about, but which give me great joy, is that somewhere in a courtroom in America right now, we've had almost 30 million listens to our podcast now. Maybe we crossed it. I don't even know. But somewhere in America right now, there's a jury that's sequestered in a criminal trial, and they're in the jury room, and they're going guilty, guilty. And somebody's going, you know what? Hold on a minute. I heard this same bullshit on this Wrongful Conviction podcast where they framed the guy and they did this, that, the other thing, and and the forensic guy lied, or the witness was incentivized, or the cops were dishonest, or blah, 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 whatever it is, right? And they go, I'm not willing to convict. And everybody who's listening to us right now should remember, you should go to jury duty. If you get a jury duty thing in the mail, you don't want to go, right? You'd probably rather have surgery, but you got to go. And you got to serve, and you got to listen to the podcast and understand how these wrongful convictions happen. And then you got to remember that it's innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around. Our system works the opposite way. You're guilty until proven innocent.
Yep.
And you have incompetent defense lawyers, and you have prosecutors who are incentivized to just get convictions instead of doing justice, just to run up the score, right? And then to give you the longest sentence possible and all this shit. So,
is that all because of privatized prisons? Is that what's the main problem of this is going on?
No, that's a part of it, right? So about 6% of prisons in America are privatized, but that's way too many anyway. There should be no private prisons, first of all. But there's also a huge profit motive for so many people to keep people in prison, right? Think about it. The phone companies that service the prisons, that charge these exorbitant rates. You have the food service companies that give you spoiled food and they give it to the people inside the prison. The people that gouge the prisoners on anything you can think of, right? They charge them, and they charge the taxpayers exorbitant rates. I mean, it's about $180 billion business, right? Wow. So it's big business locking up American citizens, keeping them away from their families, away from their jobs, away from their churches, schools, whatever you want, right? It's a huge business, but no other country in the world does it this way. No other country in the world has ever done it this way. I'll throw a couple of things at you just real quick. So we have 2.3 million people in prison. 40 years ago, you want to guess how many we had in prison in America?
How many?
About 300,000. Right. Wow. So, and you know what? There's no benefit to public safety. There never has been. There's no serious study that's ever been done that says there's any benefit to public safety. In fact, it makes us less safe because the people that come out have no job prospects and their kids have grown up without parents. And then they're much more likely to get in trouble. So just to put that in perspective, 2.3 million people in prison. We have 4.4% of the world's population in America, but we have 25% of the world's prison population. We have 33% of the world's female prison population. 1 out of every 3 women that's in a cage right now in the world is in America, right?
Wow.
1 out of 3. It's fucking insane. And then it gets worse when you get into the numbers deeper. We have more people in prison than Russia and China combined. We have more people in jail in America who haven't been convicted of a crime, right? So they're just sitting there because they can't post bail. Then everyone behind bars in India, everyone. These are people who haven't been fucking convicted. Look at Africa, right? Africa has 54 countries. They have about 1 million people in prison. We have 2.3 million. We're one country. And then it gets worse from there. The statistic I think that fucks me up the most, and every time I say this, I say to myself, Flom, you sound fucking crazy when you say that. Don't say that. Go check that again. And every time I check it, it's still true. We lock Black people up in America at 6 times the rate of South Africa during apartheid per capita. What? I mean, it was a crime to be Black.
Right.
Yeah. So in South Africa at that time. So just existing was a crime, right? Pretty much.
Right.
And so we got to turn this whole tide of mass incarceration. But with my podcast, we're focusing on wrongful convictions, but also touching on all these issues and also adding, useful. I try to give people useful information. Like, for instance, one of the things, and I'll tell your listeners right now, if you get picked up and brought in for questioning, maybe they don't tell you you're a suspect. Maybe they do. Maybe they tell you, we just want to ask you some questions. You can go home. You know what you should do? Don't say a fucking thing. Because anything you say can and will be held against you. And you just can't do it, dude. You can't, because they have ways of tricking you into saying things and then catching you in a thing, and they'll ask you the same question a different way. And then, you lied. And then they'll tell you failed the lie detector test, but you didn't. In America, unlike every other Western country, they can lie to you. Police are allowed to lie to you, which is why we have so many false confessions. And this might be the most important thing I'm going to tell people, because a lot of your listeners are going to end up on a jury one day, and it's going to be a criminal jury. 29% of the people that have been exonerated with DNA confess to the crimes they didn't commit. So you can't if you're on look at Making a Murderer, right? Brendan Dassey, right? Who's as innocent. I mean, you had as much to do with that murder as he did. And the fact is, and I mean you, Dean, and anybody who's listening, right? Nobody, it's ridiculous, unless the actual murderer is listening, in which case, go fuck yourself. But the fact is that people confess to crimes they didn't commit for a variety of reasons. But one of the main ones is that cops can lie to you. And if you saw the Central Park 5 movie, they call it the Exonerated 5 movie, you'll know when they see us. I mean, it's so painful to watch that movie. But they'll use physical force, they'll use psychological pressure, coercion, they'll trick you into all kinds of things. And people confess just because they can't endure the interrogation anymore. They can't endure it. They just want it to end. They use good cop, bad cop. And they lie. They go, Dean, look, man, you've never been in trouble before. You seem like a nice guy. You got a good podcast, whatever, your stand-up comedy, It's just that we found your fingerprints, on the murder weapon and stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, it doesn't, and we got a guy next door who says he saw you walking out of the bar right at the time the murder happened. We got a video satellite thing. We got, and you go, what, can I see it? Yeah, we're trying to download it. They'll they go, and we got this and we got that. And finally you're like, fuck, maybe I was in a blackout. Like, but how could they have all this evidence? And you get so confused. We've had clients who actually left the interrogation room believing that they committed the crime that they didn't fucking commit. Because wow. DNA proved it, that they didn't do it. They could not have done it, but they thought they did because these police were so, so insistent and so trained. And also we all grow up respecting, people in positions of power.
Well, shit, man. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here with you. I'm looking forward to doing some good stuff together. We send music back and forth, and it's good. And I really appreciate you giving me a chance to talk to your audience and maybe open some people's eyes about this problem. If you want to learn more, like I said, podcast is Wrongful Conviction. Love to have you listen and get involved. And if you want to follow me, like I said, it's Jason Flom, ITS Jason Flom. That's me.
That's great, man. That's great. All right. So, so where you at right now with Love? You got like a new signing, this band, The Warning, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? This band, I got to tell you, Dean, I get a call. There's a wonderful A&R person who works for me named Devin O'Connor. She says to me one day, you got to go down to Mercury Lounge tonight and see this band, The Warning. Now, I don't want to go to Mercury Lounge on the last minute. And it's like, I live on the other side of town. It was like, I don't need to sound like a grumpy old guy, but Jesus, I was like, Tuesday night it's cold, whatever the hell was going on. So I go down to
and
see
you're old. You're old. You're like, I chased it.
Thanks, Dean. I've been to the Mercury Lounge one too many times. But anyway, nothing against the Mercury Lounge. It's a great venue. We need more like that. So anyway, okay. So I go down to the Mercury Lounge, and I was in a bad mood too. I had some rotten news came in on the way downtown. A case I was working on, it was an execution of an innocent guy that night. And I'd been doing everything I could to prevent it. And so it was just not optimal at all. Right. I get down there and I meet them backstage. It was these three sisters, right? They were, I'm trying to think, maybe 14, 17, and 19, maybe even a little younger than that. They're sisters from Mexico. And they're just all business, man. They're just like so dialed in. It was almost like the first time I met Haley from Paramore, right? Like this is a rocket ship. Like jump on, Flom, jump on, And so they get on stage. I was like, I'll stay for 3 or 4 or 5 songs, right? You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
They must have played 19, 20 songs. And I was riveted. I was like, they cannot be this good. It doesn't make sense. Right? They're these 3 sisters and they're playing like Metallica. I'm like, what is going on here? They're so locked in. And I mean, every aspect of the show was incredible. And I just was like, I got it. This is craziness, So I was thrilled to sign them. Now here's what's going on, Dean. You ready? So they're on the Metallica Blacklist tribute album, right? They did Enter Sandman with Alessia Cara.
I heard it. It's wild.
Yeah, it's blowing up, and they're they're opening for the Foo Fighters in Mexico. That show just got pushed back, but I don't know the exact date now. But they're selling out. Like, check this out: they sold out the Mercury Lounge in New York. They'd never been to New York. They had 2 nights at the Mercury Lounge. Right, one night sold out, the other night almost totally sold out. Now they just put the Troubadour on sale in L.A. 10 months away, sold out in 10 minutes, or 8 months away, sold out in 10 minutes. I'm like, there's a real thing happening here, and their fans are crazy. Their fans love them so much. They send them money on Patreon. You know, it's like Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 Hours, right? They've been playing together since they were little kids. And so the groove is like, you can't deny it. You know what I mean? And so I hope everybody checks them out. The Warning, man, that's my pick to click. It's happening, you know?
Wow. Have you heard Stonefield from Australia?
No, but it sounds like I got to get on that.
Oh, man. Okay, this is 4 sisters. I first met them on Jam Cruise. I went on Jam Cruise with the Mother Hips, which are my favorite band, band 30 years together, man. Ruben signed them back in the day, then dropped them, and they've been going for 30 years, this band, Mother Hips. Unreal, dude. And anyway, so I go free on this Jam Cruise as their tour manager, and we meet this family. The dad is way into Zappa, and the kids are into Zappa, and the mom's there and stuff. And we talk to them for a couple days, and then eventually they come to America and play. I have them on the podcast, and they just destroy. And I've been following their careers for like the last 8 years. And you got to check them out, man. I tried to get Linda Perry on them, but she was looking for an unsigned act. I think they've got a small deal in Australia or something, but Stonefield, these guys are unreal. They're 4 sisters, and the one girl sings and plays drums, lead singer, drummer. It is awesome, man. And they kill. Like The Warning.
Is it 2 words? Oh, here is Stonefield. I just found it on my phone here. Let me see.
Do me a favor and listen to them, you know?
Yeah, man. I'm going to listen to them as soon as we hang up the phone. How about that?
Yeah, let me know. And I think you're going to love them. And the Mother Hips, man. If you ever want to sign a band that were soldiers, just to do something really outside the box. These guys are unreal.
It's funny because we've been signing, brothers and sister acts, right? Greta Van Fleet,
Yeah.
like it's kind of our thing these days. So
and these guys also have really heavy stuff in a Sabbath type of sound, big time. Some of their early records were kind of doom, kind of stoner rock of like that 70s thing that was going, that desert sound, psychedelia metal, So
and they're not signed?
I think they've got a small deal in Australia, so you could definitely do something there, and I think you would love them. You see them live, you're like, whoa, the bass player kills. And then the other sister, they're 4 sisters, but one plays like B3 kind of keyboards and stuff. It's really cool.
And this is what I wanted to say right here on your show. I'm going to announce this. Okay. So I'm really refocusing again on rock. So I was talking to, Republic Records is our partner. Lava Records is, partnership with Republic. Monty Lippman, him and his brother Avery founded this label in their kitchen, and it became the #1 label in the world. Hard to believe, right? When you think about the great labels of all the years, but they did it. And, and they were so supportive of Greta Van Fleet, and they're Monty was saying to me today, look, man, he's like, let's turn Lava into the rock label, just like it was back in the day, like full on rock and roll. So I'm looking for bands right now. I'm announcing it on your show. Wow. If somebody knows a great rock band that's looking for a deal, DM me on Instagram. Okay, it's or you could even email me if you want, but DM me is fine. My Instagram is It's Jason Flom, ITS Jason FLOM Flom, and tell me about the best band that I don't know about. I'll appreciate it.
I'm going to tell you the band right now. Okay, they had a deal and it's gone. I just interviewed them last week. They're from Chicago, and I've got their new record, and I'll send it over to you. This band is fucking fire, dude. They're like Cheap Trick meets Cheap Trick. It's like 70s rock.
All right, by the way, Dean, don't announce it here. I don't think too many people are signing rock bands these days besides me, but even still, let's keep it between us. So send me that one offline. Okay. That'll be our secret.
Okay, because this band, dude, it's like Weezer, Cheap Trick, Eagles.
Text it to me right now.
Okay, hold on. Here we go. Now they got a record out, and and then they had some problems with the label and they left it. Okay, here it is right here. I'm going to text it to you. And they just sent me their new album and it fucking blew me away. Here it is right here. I just sent it to you. And they're from Chicago. And you are going to, I mean, this band, I was like, what? This record I have in the can right now, and I'll send it over to you.
Yes, email it to me, okay?
Okay, they don't know where to put it out yet. And I think that this record, it blows my mind, actually. And these guys, oh my God, they are DIY. They're out in a van. Their transmission broke yesterday, and they just do gigs all day, every day. They played Riot Fest on the side stage or Lollapalooza, one of the two. And man, I think it was Lollapalooza. And holy smokes, dude.
All right, I'm on it.
So they got a record out right now that was out like a year and a half ago, and I was championing him on the podcast heavy. And then they sent me over this one. I just interviewed the guitar player and multiple singers, 3 guitars, B3, full rock, man.
Okay. I'm going to check it out. As soon as we hang up, I'm going to go get on that. I love it. And thank you for the tip. I appreciate it. And like I said, I'm looking forward to hearing from some of your people out there. I'm sure somebody's got, is in a band or has got a band that's going to be burning up the charts, and I want to be a part of it. So hit me up. It's Jason Flom, ITS Jason Flom. Tell me what's going on, and I'm ready to go. All right. We're going to make the world safe for rock and roll again. Dean Del Rey style, baby. Let's go. Okay. That's what my son says. Let's go. You know what I mean? So so I'm geeked, as you can tell. We actually just signed. Well, we're just in the process of signing another one. I'm really excited about. I'm going to tell you about that later. It's It's awesome. You probably know them. I mean, I could tell you on here. I don't even care. I'll wait till the ink's dry on the contract. I'll tell you about it. I'm going to text you that one right now. Listen to us. We're on a whole secret mission here.
Okay.
Check these dudes out, yo. I want to get them on your show too.
Oh yeah.
It's another female singer, and she's a full-on rock star, dude. Oh my God. She's like, if it came out that she and Gaga were sisters, you wouldn't be surprised. She's just a full-on rock star. Anyway, man. So yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go get some more vegan food, dude. I'm all about it.
Yeah. How long you been vegan?
I'm not fully vegan.
Segan, like me, right?
I'm in and out. I'm in and out of it. I mean, I really, I recognize it's wrong. I shouldn't eat fish either.
Right.
But for, I don't know. I do it once in a while. I try to do it as little as I can, try to eat vegan, as much as I can.
Yeah. So, you're in great shape.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I mean, look, I love to work out and stuff, but and I don't do dairy. I think dairy is really evil. I cheat on that with pizza, maybe a few times a year.
Right.
Maybe if a little salad comes and it's got a little cheese on it, but I try to avoid all dairy products, no milk. I never buy cheese.
Yeah.
But to me, I think it's really about perfection is a nice concept. I'm not perfect. And I know people who are in this regard, and I respect that. But I love animals more than I love food. And I want to be a good, global citizen and try to do as little damage to the other living beings on the earth as I can, and help people whenever I can. So, but again, like, I think if you're listening and you say, well, listen, I'm not going to give it up. Maybe just eat a little less of it, try that. Stop eating pork, for instance, right? That's one way to start. Stop eating veal. Stop eating pork. Like, eliminate those, and then gradually you can work your way in. I've been on this program for 5 or 6 years, so I'm not mad at people that still do it, because I used to do it. But I think now there's more awareness and everything. Yeah. I wish I knew what I knew now then, and I would have stopped doing this shit like 30, 40 years ago, because that's when I gave up veal, when I first became aware that, these cows were tortured, from the time they're born in these tiny little, but then you find out the pigs are tortured just the same way. And, listen, at the end of the day, I spoil the shit out of my dog. I don't see any reason why I should treat other animals differently. And I'm not going to be a part of an industry that tortures animals. It's not happening. So anyway, so that's my 2 cents.
Hell yeah, dude.
So let's go get some more vegan food. It's great to be with you, Dean. Thanks for doing this. And and by the way, follow the Church of Rock and Roll on Instagram. We're gonna have some big things we're working on. We'll talk about that on the next podcast.
Oh yeah, all right, yeah, definitely.
Church of Rock and Roll on Instagram is the fucking place to be. Let me just pull it up here. I'm gonna look at it right now. I think you'll see some cool shit. Yeah, it's just Church of Rock and Roll. It's not the Church of Rock and Roll.
Okay, all right.
And we'll talk soon.